Welcome to the Enabling Buying Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Kirch, and I'm grateful you're here. Enabling Buying is brought to you by Collavia.com, your all-in-one sales enablement platform. Now, we launched this show because selling has become harder than ever before. Buyers are overwhelmed with messaging, distractions, and competing voices. In a marketplace filled with noise, the old approach of pushing products and pitching features simply isn't enough. See, enabling buying is about something different. It's about understanding how people actually make decisions. It's about earning trust, creating meaningful human connections, and really helping buyers move forward with confidence. Instead of pushing towards a purchase, we focus on guiding them through their buying journey. See, when we help buyers achieve what matters to them, better outcomes follow for everyone involved. Today's guest is someone who understands this, someone who has dedicated his career to understanding exactly how buyers make decisions. Patrick Seaton is a sales strategist, author, and creator of Ask Alex, a neuroscience-based sales coaching platform built on more than 25 years of experience in sales, transformation, and organizational development. His book, A Crocodile Brain, Can Make or Break Your Sale, is the knowledge foundation of that platform. It translates decades of research on how the primitive brain drives buying decisions into practical frameworks that sellers can use in every conversation, regardless of industry or experience. Patrick's work is grounded in one core idea: buyers do not follow the seller's process. They follow their own internal buying journey. When sellers learn to read where a buyer actually is in that journey and respond to what the stage genuinely requires, the nature of that conversation shifts entirely. Ask Alex was built to bring that shift to solopreneurs, independent professionals, and small businesses that have never had access to a real sales methodology. It's not a generic AI tool. It's built on 5 curated ingredients working together: specialized agent tools, proven frameworks, industry-specific workflows, brain science, and the seller's own context. That combination is what separates expert-level guidance from a search engine with a chat interface. Let's welcome Patrick Seaton to Enabling Buying Podcast. Patrick, welcome to the Enabling Buying Podcast. Great to see you, my friend.
Thanks, Paul. Great to see you too.
Absolutely. Thanks, man. I really appreciate you doing this. You know, you have a really interesting perspective when it comes to selling and the buying positioning, and you understand the buyer's perspective. And one area that you've been really very vocal about is, that we need to be taking some neuroscience into consideration. You wrote a book called A Crocodile Brain Can Make or Break Your Sale, the process and science for guiding organizations to buy from you. And that's really powerful. When we think about enabling buying, it's not about pushing a message, it's about drawing people in. And I think that's what your focus is really about. So let's kind of start talking about, what is it you think most salespeople really misunderstand about how to really enable buying, create a buying decision that actually creates a win-win scenario? Why do we think that a lot of salespeople are alienating versus attracting?
Well, most of the time is because they're trying to sell. And if you want to sell better, you need to stop selling and start solving. And solving means solving the problems of what people want to buy for. That's what people buy for. We don't just walk around saying, I want to buy something just for the heck of it, because it has something. And in business, it means that it's going to solve a problem for me. It's going to help me. It's going to reduce my stress, my anxiety. It's going to increase my productivity. And the more that we spend, or that sellers spend, focused on what they want to sell as opposed to how to help people make a decision on buying, that's the start and the stop of it. We need to get out of our own way.
Yeah, Jeffrey Gitomer. I mean, if you've studied selling in any way, you've read the little bit Red Book of Selling or the Sales Bible or of any of his products, he coined a phrase. I don't know if he actually created it or if it's just one that he embraced, but people hate to be sold, but they love to buy. I've always loved that message because I think that's really, when I think about myself, I have people show up at my door. I work from home. And if somebody comes to my door and I'm in the middle of things and they're knocking on the door, they're doing their best to sell something to me. They're not even being rude. The minute they come to the door, they're invading my space. They're interrupting my time. There's an instant wall put up. And I
Yes.
try to be empathetic to their situation, but quite frankly, it's so it does not ever make me feel like, oh my gosh, this is somebody I need to talk to. Then every now and then you have somebody show up at your door and they've got this message that's like, you don't feel like they're pushing you. They're like trying to get
Mhm.
to know you, and it creates an opportunity for warmth. But I think most selling is, people put up a defense wall instantly, even if they want to buy something. The idea of being sold, walking into a store and somebody's, instantly, hey, how can I help you? It's like versus, hey, I've got this sweater I think would look great on you. Two different approaches that created totally different emotions. So when we think about the crocodile brain, explain how that comes into play, because I think that's a big part of this whole equation of alienation versus attraction.
Yeah, well, that is the major part of the equation, because so the crocodile brain, and the crocodile brain has multiple names. I call it the croc brain. Some people call it crocodile. Some people call it reptilian brain, the lizard brain, the dinosaur brain, the primitive brain. Okay, they all are the same thing. And in essence, it is the base of our neck where all communication starts. And the human brain has 3 layers, and it goes through evolution. The first brain was the brain that the dinosaurs had, and that is that crocodile brain. And that brain has very few jobs to do, if you will. It is there to protect you. It is the gatekeeper to the rest of the brain. It is there to make sure that whatever it's seeing or hearing is to help you thrive and survive. It does not like threats, and it doesn't understand a lot of stuff. It's very binary, yes or no. So complicated things, it tries to simplify to see if it can understand it. And if it doesn't, then it disengages, or it says, yeah, I'm just going to block this. So it will either block a message, it will simplify a message, or it will let it pass through. Now, why is all that interesting and important? Because the second layer is our limbic brain, which is the emotional brain. And that's what you just talked about. There's some sort of emotion or something going on. And the third part of our brain at the top is the neocortex, and some people call that the logical brain. That is the brain that understands all the data, all the information, all the analysis, all the human stuff, because humans are the only ones with the neocortex. Mammals have the croc brain and the limbic brain. That's why dogs, cats, monkeys, they show emotions, because they have that part of the brain. So in order to get to, in selling, to get to the neocortex, which is to analyze our price, our packages, and all the things that we love to talk about, features and functionalities, you first have to go through the crocodile brain and the limbic brain to get to that neocortex. So
Yeah.
the brain studies show that up to 90% of our decisions, all of our decisions, personal and professional, are made between the croc brain and the limbic brain. And the neocortex is only there to justify the decision. It's not there to make the decision. Our neocortex does not make decisions. We make decisions off of, will this help me? Will this help me thrive and survive? Does this make me happy? Do I get emotional about it? Yep, okay. The decision's made. Now we're going to look for the justification. And money is considered a threat. Pricing, because you want to take my money. That is understood as a threat. But if what I want from you is going to help me solve my problems emotionally, I want that. I don't really care about the price. I'm more driven by the emotion than the price, and I just need to justify the price. And imagine a couple who goes in to buy a house. They have a budget. They see a house. They walk in. It's the perfect layout, open floor plan. The wife can see the kids playing from the kitchen, fenced-in backyard, across the street from the park, 2 blocks from school. Everything is absolutely perfect. They fall in love with the house, and then they see the price, and they're going to have to find another $8,000. They will find that money. They will justify the extra $8,000 for the perfect house. That's buying off of emotions as opposed to just the number.
Yeah, in that same situation, if that was a different emotion that they were experiencing, let's say that they came in and they thought the price was $8,000 less than what they were actually being told to buy. That salesperson says, "Oh no, you're wrong. It's this price. It's $8,000 more." That is going to trigger a different set of emotions, because you're right, that positive emotion. Like when I think about what you're talking about with the crocodile brain and things like that, I always think about things like fight or flight. The things we have always been told that it's like our brains are trying to preserve us and save us. But anytime fear comes into the equation, it's like it creates massive resistance. And a lot of us know this, but within organizations, I often talking about how within companies, it's easy to talk about certain things. We create a product and we see what goes into it internally and the thought process, and someone goes, "Oh, we're solving this problem. This product has these features, these benefits." CRMs, slide decks, inboxes. Sales teams don't need more scattered tools. They need alignment. Collavia brings your sales playbook, AI coaching, training, and goals together in one platform for consultative B2B teams looking to close more deals with less confusion and greater consistency. Collavia, enabling buying in a world of selling. Visit Collavia.com. Man, this is going to solve all the problems for people out there. And we start talking about those elements within the company. We train our salespeople to talk about those. And they go out in the marketplace, and that's not what people are buying. They're buying, how do I overcome this financial downturn we're in? How do we keep our lights on? How do we capitalize upon this growth we have right now without taking massive risks? So they're buying from an emotional place, and we're often selling from a logical place. So
Right.
Within organizations, why do you think that companies spend so much time training sellers on these things, but they don't train them on the understanding buying? I think that's the biggest disconnect.
I think a lot of companies just think or assume that if I tell you how wonderful something is, you will fill in the blanks and get to the same point that I am. It's a longer process, potentially, but it is also a much easier way to measure is someone on the course to buying. Because you could talk to, let's say you have a first contact, you talk to them, you explain it, they get it, you give the quote with all those bells and whistles and everything. That quote, in today's day and age, buying is not an individual sport, it is a team sport. So they're going to have to go and show that to other people who have not been on the journey with you. All they're seeing is a piece of paper with a number. And they go, "Why should I? You just want the money. Someone wants my money." They haven't gone on the journey with you.
Yeah.
And our job, I feel, as sellers, is not to sell. Our job is to guide the buyer through their buying process.
Yeah, 100%.
And if it is that you have the solution that they want to buy to solve, or that will solve their problems, you have a much higher possibility of closing the sale. But the buying process starts with, imagine buying a car. You have a car, it's running fine. And someone walks up to you and says, "Hey, you want to buy a new car, brand new car?" Like, get out of my face. Why do I need that? That's my crocodile brain saying, "You just want my money. I don't need one."
Yeah.
Now, if I hear a little noise in my car, and I'm like, well, that's new. And my car's 12 years old, so maybe it does have a little, few kinks and joint problems like the rest of us do after we get older. then we might go, well, you know what? Maybe I should check this out. Now, if that same seller said, you want to buy the new car? No, not yet. I don't. I'm going to go to the mechanic, see what's going on. Now, if the mechanic says, this is going to cost you $4,000, you're like, that's more than my car's probably worth. I'm still not going to buy a brand new car because I have other options. I might buy a used car.
Mm-hmm.
I might, but if I say, well, you know what? Why don't I go to the car lot and see what a new car looks like? I haven't looked at a new car in 12 years. And I go on the lot and they start pushing me. No, I want to understand. I want to walk around. I want to see what the choices are. I want to look at the safety. I want to look at insurance. I want to test drive. I want to. That's all the buying journey.
Yeah, and that same situation though is interesting, Patrick, because that person can come into that place ready to buy. So I'll give a great personal example. Years ago, I had done my homework and I knew what I wanted to pay for a new car, and I called a dealership, went in and test drove a car, and they weren't anywhere near the price that I thought that they should be. And so I shopped around. There was a dealership about an hour away, and I called them and I said, here's what I want to pay. Here's the car I'm looking for, and I know you've got one on the lot. And they said, yep. And I said, if you think you can get to that price, I will drive over and we'll do business. And they said, no problem. Absolutely. We can do that. So I drove there, got to the dealership and was looking at the car, and I was like so ready to sign on the dotted line, and I go test drive it, and I come back and I'm just like ready to go. And he comes back from the manager's office with a piece of paper. He goes, oh, here's our offer. It was about $2,000 more than I'd told him I was willing to pay. And he was insistent that's as low as they could get. And they were really pushy. They weren't like friendly at all. Here I am, a guy ready to sign on the dotted line, and I'm ready to walk out the door. And I got livid. I said, you wasted my time. I'm going to drive 2 hours for this, and you misled me on the phone. And eventually, as I was getting ready to leave, I'm angry. I don't want to do business with these people under any circumstances. And they came back and they offered me the price that they had said, okay, we'll do it for that price. I was still ready to say no. And my girlfriend at the time said, you can't pass up this deal. And so I ended up buying. But, here I was, a guy ready to sign on the dotted line, and they almost talked me out of it because they misled me, made me feel distrust. And that crocodile brain went into protective mode and said, no, this is not for you.
Absolutely. And what you had done before going to or calling them is you had done all of those things before, during that buying process. Mm-hmm. And that's what buyers are. They have more access to more information. They can find a lot more. They can talk to a lot of people. They're making a lot of these decisions that they don't require. In the old days, the salesperson had to give them the information live, flyers and brochures, and now don't need that. So the buyer is much more savvy, and the point is, we don't know as sellers where the person is in their buying journey. You might walk in and they're ready to buy from you because they just like you did. But they might not even realize they have a problem, and they're way at the top of the buying journey.
Yeah.
And so your job is much different. It's not to sell and close a deal. It is, I've got to first talk to you.
Yeah, it's so true. And you think about, the idea of a buyer being ready to buy is one thing, but there's a buyer's journey that we often are not trained as salespeople to navigate. Often as a salesperson, we have our own agenda. We've got quota to reach, we've got targets, we've got all these things and all these pressures to get people to buy. But the savvy salesperson understands it's not about their agenda. It's about understanding the buyer's journey. Can you talk a little bit about the process of a buyer and some of those stages that they have to navigate?
Well, yeah, I find it really ironic when a seller is in a buyer's position. They hate it when they get sold to. They hate all of that pushiness and all of that. We don't like it as buyers. But something in our brain, I don't know what, but when we get into the seller's mode because we love our products and services so much,
That's
we
right.
believe so much about it, that we think that everyone's just going to love it as much as us. And so we jump right to, look how wonderful, we are the best thing since sliced bread. But when we are in the buying, we're like, I don't care about that stuff. There's some disconnect there with a lot of sellers that feel like they're just going to love, they're going to be so impressed by me. They're going to just become as passionate as I am about it. And they're going to see everything like as plain as the nose on their face because I see it that way. But they don't, because they don't know it the way the seller knows it. And so that buying journey is very real. And I think every seller and company, even a company, they have suppliers going in all the time pitching them to buy something for their business. They don't like being sold to. They go through the same thing. They scrutinize, they vet, they ask a lot of questions. They want to see if this person really has my best interests in mind or not. Are they really trying to help me and thrive and survive, or are they just trying to get my money? And because we do that, we do it over and over as buyers, but somehow we don't, when we're training our sellers, we don't flip it around to them.
Yeah, and this is interesting because one of the things I want to talk about here as we're closing is, you're a traditional sales coach. You've written a book on the subject. You've helped people understand the neuroscience of selling, but now you've gone down the technology side. How can I support what I do from a technology angle? And so you've developed a product called Ask Alex. I'm curious about what that journey's been like, and what's the goal behind Ask Alex, and why lean into AI in a world of human connection, because that's where you and I both live.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But there's so many things that AI can do. It's not just about automation. In fact, I think that's part of the challenge right now. Too much noise in the marketplace, too much automation, too much focus on the wrong things. What was
Yeah.
your goal with Ask Alex, and where are you going with this product?
Yeah. So the book that I wrote here, I'll show it because it's a cool cover. The book is all about how to guide organizations or people to buy from you. So it is in the sales category, but it's really a buying book. How to help people learn to buy. And when I wrote it, it came after 9 years of a client work and that process that was developed, and the neuroscience helped that company grow one sales team by 25x over a 7-year period. Huge increase. And when I left there, I said, I'm going to memorialize it. So I wrote the book. The book then, when AI came out, because I wrote the book, I finished it in 2022 before AI was really around. And in 2024, when it finally got published, I started working to make Ask Alex. And Ask Alex is, I try to avoid saying it's AI because AI makes everyone think, oh, AI is going to do all the thinking. It's
Yeah.
going to create all the answers. It's not that. It is plugged into Claude. I use Claude because I like the way Claude writes. But Claude is just there as an AI just to write the messages. But what it does is it takes very specific agents around selling. It takes all the content of the book. It takes all of the company information and context. And then it adds neuroscience and makes sure that everything it gives you is focused on the buyer perspective, not the seller. It's the other thing about AI. It wants to blow smoke up your skirt as much as it can and tell you how wonderful and brilliant you are, when in reality it might be a totally wrong message for the receiver's brain.
Mm-hmm.
So, Ask Alex is, I call it a communication and sales thought partner. It is not to give you the answer. It is to think through how to prepare for my next interaction, meeting, call, whatever it might be, as a seller. And then afterwards, let's analyze and how can I improve? So it's a sustainability coach. It is I can ask it anything coach about sales, because the book has the entire sales process incorporated into it. So it will walk through the entire life cycle of the sale.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always doing it from the buyer journey perspective.
Yeah, and so when we look at the use of AI within organizations, like you said, this is not AI doing the work; it's AI supported.
Mm-hmm.
But where do you see opportunities within sales organizations to effectively use AI instead of just trying to replace efforts and create more leads and more opportunities through impersonal outreach?
Yeah.
And there's no question that there's people out there doing it maybe more effectively than others. But I think
Mm-hmm.
we're just adding a lot of noise and we're creating this resistance from people because now all of a sudden I go on LinkedIn and any given day, I've got 18,000 followers, plus 20,000 followers on LinkedIn. I don't say that to brag. My inbox is a mess because
Mm-hmm.
every day I'm inundated with impersonal automated messages.
Right.
So
Yeah.
where do you see the biggest opportunity to do it right?
Well, I see two ways. One, I won't deny that the automation is good, because it can take care of some tasks that save us time, and we use our brain power more effectively, and we have more time to do other things. However, most of that automation is just there to churn out, but it does not have that neuroscience buyer perspective. And I think that companies that are creating automation tools would do very well to plug in Ask Alex behind the scenes, so that before it sends out those impersonal messages, it actually does a check on it and says, is this message really going to land on the buyer's brain the way we think?
Yeah.
Just because you send out 20,000 messages doesn't mean they're 20,000 good messages. A bad message is a bad message, and it will land poorly on the brain of the reader.
Yeah, and
And
this isn't meant to be a commercial for Ask Alex
no,
by any
not a,
means, but the reality is you've created something that does fill that need. And I think that whether it's Ask Alex or Collavia or some other tool out there that helps support the human side of selling,
yes, yes, and
I think it's important.
that's what was my goal. How to
Mm,
help the conversations, prepare for the conversations that we're going to have. Conversations could even be an email. That's a sort of type of a conversation. But how do we prepare better for those and get out of our own brain and out of our own way? Because
yeah.
when everything we write sounds perfect, we love it because we wrote it. Of course it should, but that doesn't mean it's going to land well on the other person.
In fact,
And
it often fails the test. This is why, things like role playing and real scenarios in companies should not be ignored. And so many companies don't take the time to do it. They
yeah,
send their people out on the street with a message. And quite frankly, if we don't test what's actually being said and how it's being reflected upon, we make the assumption that, oh, we're making the best product. We got the best sliced bread out there. Everyone's going to want it. And that often is a
it's not
recipe for
good.
disaster. So as we close this, I want to close on one
Yeah,
question. So
cool.
Patrick, if every seller listening today started viewing themselves as, as someone who helps people make the buying decision better rather than someone who just is focused on closing deals, what would you see changing?
I think the biggest thing I would see changing is their mindset. And I would say, here's what you have to do: fall in love with the problem, don't fall in love with the solution.
Oh, that's good.
And when you fall in love with the problem, you have to talk to the people with the problem. You have to listen to them. You have to ask them questions. And when you fall in love with the solution, then you are smarter than everyone in the room, and that's how you go in. So if you don't know what the problem is, if you have not fallen in love with their problem, then you're just going to keep repeating everything. And yes, you will be successful. That's why there's a statistic, get 10 opportunities and you'll close 2 and we'll lose 8. Okay, that's like saying, I'm going to create a new football team. I'm going to have the best players, the best coaches, the best uniforms, the best fans, the best stadium, the best this and this, and we're going to lose 8 games out of 10. Okay, that's wrong. When we fall in love with the problem, then we change and we become problem solvers, not just pushers.
Yeah, and I think you just summarized the biggest challenge in sales today is most companies and most people out there selling are in love with their solution because it's the thing that's easy to talk about. The hard work is building the relationships and earning trust. Patrick, thank you so much for coming on today to Enabling Buying. Great insights. How can people connect with you?
I'm on LinkedIn, or you can find me at innovativemanagementtools.com. And if you are interested in Ask Alex, at askalex.coach. And would love to engage with people and just talk about, as you said, I do coaching, I do this and that, but helping people realize how much they're in their own way.
100%. Well, we'll put that information in the show notes. Patrick Seaton, once again, thanks for being on the Enabling Buying podcast. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. You too.